Hey, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Cryptid and Paranormal Kingdom. I'm your host, Carlito Castro, and I have a special guest tonight. His name is Darrell Denton, and he has a very big group, Cryptid and Paranormal group, on Facebook. I believe he's on 27,000 members. Wow, that's a pretty big number. And I've been, but I've been in this group for a long time. I'm actually a moderator there, and been wanting to know what the story is behind the man, the myth. Darrell Denton. He's got a big following, so I want to get to know who he is, and you guys as well. Y'all gonna get to know who he is. And yeah, I have him backstage right now, and I'm fixing to bring him on. So without further ado, guys, let's get Darrell in the stream. Hey, what's up, Darrell? How you doing, brother?
Hey, Carlito. Good to see you, my man. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Yes, absolutely, man. Like I told you, I've been wanting to get you on for a long time, man, because I've been seeing you behind the scenes. I've been seeing your group, and like I was mentioning to the audience right now that your group is a pretty big cryptid and paranormal group, 27,000 members, I believe, on Facebook. And whereas mine is only 2.8, 2.9 thousand. So that's what kind of intrigued me on, wow, how long has he had this group? And I'm pretty sure he has encounters, Bigfoot, Dogman, whatever, and you have a big following on Facebook. So yeah, I wanted to get to know you a little bit better, brother.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate you being in the group, too. And
Yeah.
you've been in there quite a while, and you and I have been pretty good friends since far.
Yes. Yes, we have.
Been back and forth and that type of thing. So, honored to be on your show, and I appreciate you having me. Uh,
Absolutely, brother.
we've actually had the group actually, the first group that I had was one of the first groups, and it wasn't my group altogether. It was a good friend, Michael Patterson, we had back in 2015, I guess it was, and that was Blue Ridge Crypto and Sasquatch that I joined with him on, and I was in that for a long time. And then in February of 2022, I decided to go out on my own and start my own, and just had a real strong criteria what I wanted to stick with, and that was mainly giving people a chance to tell their stories without any criticism. So,
Exactly.
our
Exactly.
group stands behind that real strong. Some people think we're maybe too strict, but everyone that's on there can feel comfortable by telling their encounters or their stories and comments without criticism and no laughing emojis or any of that thing on a serious
Right.
post. We want everybody to have a good time. We want them to be
Right.
very kind and courteous to all the people who have held back on those stories for so long. So my group's grown so big because I have so many great big members in it, big time stars, and then just the regular old people like myself and hardworking researchers. So it's all a combination, and my admin does such a fantastic job, and really can't say a whole lot about anything but good for them. So they've been really good friends to me, and we work real good together.
Wow. Awesome, man. I've heard of the guys like would you just named
Yeah,
um
my admins are Robin McCrae, very
mhm.
close friend, Jennifer Appleton, Rebecca Curriton, Kenny Busby, Vicky Brown, Martin Groves, Barton Nunley, who are my two best friends and research partners.
There you go, Barton Nunley.
And
That's the name I was looking for, Barton Nunley. Yeah,
Carter Bouchard, you know, Wendy K. Puckett. We have a real strong admin team. Hoping I didn't leave anybody out because I love them all. Then we have really good moderators and
mhm.
experts in the group. And nobody's actually an expert, but that's just the term Facebook allowed us
Right,
to use. So,
right. Yeah, group expert. Yeah, I know. And well, they kind of help you, with whatever questions you may have, or kind
sure,
of
yeah. I mean,
kind of guide you, really. Yeah.
they
Hmm.
kind of watch over the group,
Hmm.
and I have a lot of really good people that really do help out a lot, and we stay on top of it. We don't allow any criticism. And
Right.
you hate to boot
Exactly.
somebody out because you want everybody to be happy and enjoy being in the group because we're all there to learn
Right.
anyway and have a good
Right.
time. But at the same
Ex-
time, you got to be fair to everybody. So
yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Hey, Daryl. So, when exactly did you start your Facebook group, and how fast did it grow to be at 27,000, brother?
I started it in February of 2022, late February. So we've been in about March, like I guess we've been in about roughly 16, almost 17 months now. So
Wow, that
started
was
really fast.
fast.
So
Yeah, that
yeah,
was fast, man. To grow that big, that fast, that was pretty fast, man. How it grew like that, because I've been doing my show since 2021 January, so that's a little over 2 years, two and a half years actually, but wow, man, that's amazing, man. How it grew so fast, that's awesome, brother.
like I said, it's all because of the great members and admin and the big stars I have in my group, like Ron Moorhead and people like that who help out
Oh,
so much. But
right.
real
Hmm.
fortunate to have those people in the group. But
Right.
my admin team does so much for me. They're on it all the time, and with I help out quite a bit, but they're really the strong force of the group. They
Right.
really protect it. But the members are the key. Your members are what you have to have, and I'm real
That's
good about promoting in my group. So people ask me all the time, you sure got a lot of moderators and experts. Well, Facebook says you're supposed to have like one of each per every 100, and I'm nowhere near that. We probably got a total of 150 total, and we're nowhere close to the number they suggest. But I
wow.
know
That is a
Facebook's
lot.
been pretty good to allow us to have a format, so I appreciate them too. I'm going to leave them out. Everybody criticizes them, but we wouldn't be here at all without them. So
Right. Right. Hey, also I wanted to ask you, how long have you known Martin Groves and Barton Hunley?
I've been real good. Martin Groves and I have been friends for going on 42 years. Um,
Wow.
he
Okay.
was chief. He was a deputy sheriff, chief deputy, I think was his title. He was up there. He worked the county that we both live in. He was with sheriff's department for about 31 years, and
Hmm.
I was an elected official as a commissioner and an alderman, and then a mayor for a lot of years. And I spent about 26 years in that. And I got out in 2016. He and I used to talk about our encounter because, back in the 90s when we had our encounter, you really couldn't say much because everybody thought you were crazy. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you couldn't speak much about it, especially with me being an elected official. They think I was crazy talking about a Bigfoot. And then Martin had the Dogman encounter in '93. Mine was in '92. And Martin
Wow.
and I have known
Early.
Martin a long time, but we've been really close. Me and him and Martin
Hmm.
mainly are our research team.
Oh,
And
are y'all from the same area? Because I know Martin Groves is from LBO area, Kentucky.
Martin
Uh,
lives about 15 minutes from me. We live in Robertson County, Tennessee. And
oh.
and
Okay.
we're
Tennessee.
about yeah, the LBA, Land Between the Lakes, in case the viewers don't know what that stands for. It's
Hmm.
about an hour from us where we go. So a little bit. If we go further north now, it's about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes. But it's a large area. I think it's about 270,000 acres. I think I'm right on that number. And
Yeah.
Barton, Barton only knows it as good as anybody. Him and Mark Maycheck, another good friend of Barton's, who meets us up there quite often. And he knows the area real well. And Martin knows it like the back of his hand. He gets back in those roads back there, and I wouldn't have a clue where I'm at because they go forever. There's roads, just gravel roads, dirt roads to the left, right. You don't know where you're at, you get lost back there.
Oh yeah. I believe
He's
that.
pretty good with those roads, though. He knows the area well. They both do. So that's mainly our research area. I do some research in Cheatham County, Tennessee, with my friend Billy Howell and Chester Smith too. But
So, do you still do the research as of
I
today?
haven't. Yeah, I still do research, just mainly with Martin and Martin. We get together at least. We try to get together once a month, and we'll spend some time together up there. And since I'm living out of state now, I'm living in Virginia. I stay up here with my children. I have little kids up here, so my ex lives here, so I stay up here close to them, and then I go home to Tennessee part of the month. So be headed back there tomorrow. But
Right.
yeah, we get together as often as we can, and then we have a group that meets up there pretty often too, and just hangs out at the campfire and stays in cabins, and we
Oh
have that
man,
going on too. So
that hell yeah, man, that's awesome, dude. Y'all get together like that every once in a while. That's awesome, man.
yeah, it's a good time. We try to get together once a month, you know. But this
Yeah.
month we've got the Gatlinburg conference coming up, so we don't have anything planned up there this month. But we'll be at the Gatlinburg, Tennessee conference up there. So
Right.
um, quite a few of us be up there with that. Most of the people that hang out with us at the LBL will be there. So Martin and I will have a booth, and there's several that's got booths there that we know, close friends of ours that'll be there. A lot of good people be at that conference.
Hmm. Hey, awesome. Hey, I have a question from Stephen Kramer. It says, what are some of your techniques you use when researching Sasquatch and Dogman?
You know, I've been asked that a lot and still get asked that all the time. I don't really have a technique. I do what I've always done. My first encounter was so different.
Hmm.
I was never actually in '92 when I had my first encounter. It just literally scared me to death. I didn't know I had that kind of fear in me. I was hunting in my tree stand opening day of muzzleloader season in November of '92. That was my first experience, and I didn't go back in the woods for nearly 7 years because of how frightened I was of this thing. It was pretty terrifying, but thought it was going to rip me out of the tree, but it
Wow.
didn't. And as far as technique goes, if I hadn't run into another clan that I by complete accident, not hunting but fishing, and
Wow.
I'm kind of like friends with that group, family, forest people. My techniques are when I go into the woods and I'm really into research, and I always do what I call grounding myself. I'll go in and I'll say a little prayer. I take my shoes off and ground my feet to the ground and sit there and just think and kind of talk to them a little bit, and then I go in and do research. That's in an area that I know they're in, and I've got areas like that. Um, as far as carrying, of any type of equipment. We've carried a little bit of everything over the years. Even my other research team that I have in Cheatham County, Tennessee. We've tried stuff over the years, but the best way to try to you don't ever really find the Bigfoot or the forest people. They really find you. So
Right.
they
Yeah.
know when you're there. They do have the ability to understand and know what you're thinking. They know what your intentions are. And I truly believe that some people are just more blessed to be able to see them than others because they know your intentions. I believe they can read you. They have
Yeah.
an unusual type ability that we're not used to. A
Right.
lot more ability than we're used to as humans. And
Hmm.
I do think they are a type of people, a certain type of them. But as far as getting to research them and work, you just have to spend a lot of time out there. I've spent
Right.
days, nights. I mean, I've spent weeks out there deep in. But
Right.
you just have to really
I get
just keep working. Really, I mean, that's the
right.
thing.
Right.
And have good intentions, and don't be carrying weapons and cameras because you're not. If you put a trail camera up, you'd be very lucky to ever get a picture of one. So
Yeah.
they're so super intelligent. They know what a camera is. So
Yeah.
they know what a weapon is.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
they know
Yeah.
what Jesus Christ is.
Yeah.
They
Yeah. Yeah. I think that like the trail cams, I think they can spot them, and I think they can detect them from far away, and if they get close to them, they obviously, because there's a lot of people, as a lot of people say, including me, they can see the infrared. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah, I do. I
So
believe that. I think they have abilities that we're not used to
Right.
because we don't have the ability they have. They can, I think they
Right.
can smell us. They know when we get out of the car or the truck to go into
Hmm.
the woods. They've
Right.
also usually got a scout,
Hmm.
which is usually a younger one that
Right.
will kind of
Yep.
watch out when he hears something or knows somebody's coming into the woods. But
Yeah. Absolutely. So by the time you get inside the woods, they're already gone because they already know your intentions. Like you said, they smelled you, they heard you, a mile away or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of hard. So like you said, if they want you to see them, that's when you see them, right?
oh yeah, no doubt about that. If they don't want you
Hmm.
to see them, you're not going to see them unless they're trying to scare you off. And they're
Right.
good. They're good. That's the thing about them. You don't know what kind you're encountering.
Right.
I've been fortunate enough to what I believe was three different types I've seen in my roughly 30 plus years since my first encounter. The first one was completely different than any I've ever seen, and I haven't seen one like that since. I know there are different types. I don't know how many different types. I don't claim to be an expert on anything. I'm only talking about my own experiences. But what I believe is their their abilities is what's hard for people to believe. Me personally, seeing one cloak or go interdimensional, I have not seen that. I do believe it. Ron Moorhead believes it. He has a quantum Bigfoot, and there's quite a few other people that believe it. And
Hmm.
I would definitely believe whatever Ron said. I know he's that truthful type friend, and
Hmm.
I believe him 100%. But as far as their mind speaking abilities, I do believe they can do that, and I've got good friends that's been able to do that with them and still do it on a regular basis. But me personally, I haven't mind spoke with them. They seem to, for some reason, don't mind me being around the ones that I have. I run into some aggressive ones too. Not all of them are friendly. They're kind of like people. There's good ones and bad ones. So
Right. Right.
you
Absolutely.
just don't know what you're walking into till you figure out what kind they are. Now, my personal belief, the big X's that you see in the woods made with trees and on the trail, game trail, that type of thing that you're walking on, that's the better ones in my opinion. I call those the forest people.
Hmm.
Uh, they always seem to be friendly, non-aggressive, unless you're trying to harm them or they're young, and they're a lot friendlier than the other ones. But
Right.
that's the ones I normally try to find if I'm trying to locate an area to research in. And I've
Hmm.
had quite a few of those areas over the years. One of them was by complete mistake while fishing, but
Hmm.
I've run into those areas in the LBL also where there's big X's, and that's what you look for. If you can find that, you usually run into an area where what I call the forest people are. They're a more friendly type.
Right. Right. Yeah. I agree. I agree completely. Hey, we got Joe from Hellbent Holler in the house tonight, man, and we got the Cryptid Huntress, Jessica. They're
Both great
here.
people.
They're
Love
here
Joe
tonight.
and Jesse.
Yes.
Joe and Jesse are very good friends. They're in my
Yeah.
group too, and
Yeah. They're
they're,
they're really
you
good
don't
friends.
find a better Bigfoot or actually dog man or whatever.
Hmm.
You don't find a better boots on the ground thing than Hellbent Holler. So
Yeah.
Joe
Absolutely.
and Jesse, I think the world of them, and of
Yeah.
course Jessica Jones, she's the best. I've been on her show a couple times. Actually, I
Hmm.
think three times with her and BMR once, and
Hmm.
I always enjoy her shows. She's very good at what she does, and plus
Hmm.
she's a pretty good researcher also. So
Yeah.
great people. Appreciate them being there to watch us tonight. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, man. Yeah. Me too. Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Joe, for being here tonight. Yeah, man. And we got a couple of other people in here. Go Shock. I don't know if he's from your group. I've never seen him before. I'm pretty sure he's from your group. We got Stephen Kramer. He's from Taylor, Mississippi area. He's from my group.
All
And
right. Good.
yeah, Stephen Kramer. He's got a bunch of pictures. He says he's got new pictures of Dogman in
Wow.
Taylor, Mississippi. Yeah, I just interviewed him not too long ago. I believe it was a week or 2 weeks ago.
But
Yeah.
this city seems to be a hot spot for
Oh
dog
yeah.
man. I've
Oh
had a
yeah.
lot of encounters out of that area, but it's
Yes.
one of the hotter spots right now. So
Mm-hmm.
course, I think Michigan has been known forever for the dog man,
I like to call Taylor, Mississippi like the second biggest hot spot after LBL. You know what I mean? Yeah.
LBL had some strange creatures there. You know, I personally believe, and this is my personal belief, Martin Groves and I seen one there in October of 22 together, and that was the most different creature I've ever witnessed in my life. I don't know what that was. It was a dog man type creature, but I've never seen anything like that. It was almost where you could almost see through it. It was almost cartoon character, but his head was as big as about half of the windshield of his truck, and it was in a ditch looking at me about 10 foot away and just staring at me, and like it was going like a cat. It was let down like it was going to pounce on something. And
oh wow!
Scary, and Martin got real sick. He got zapped, and I did, but not as hard as he did. And that was the strangest. That's my second dog man experience I've had. My first one being in October of 21 in Tazewell County, Virginia. But it was nothing like the last one. The first one was more like a German Shepherd looking creature. I watched it come across the field, and it didn't run. It kind of like galloped like a horse. It was kind of strange the way it ran. And then it stood up on its hind legs and looked in my direction and climbed over a fence. And that was my first encounter with a dog man. And
wow!
My second one being with Martin Groves, and actually I'm honored that he put me in the whole second chapter of his newest book.
Wow. Hey, well, I was going to ask you here in just a second, Darrell, before I ask you this question first, I was going to ask you, like, if you could tell us about your encounters that you had, your personal encounters. You said you had many, so I kind of want to go, like, in order, like, from your first to your latest, you know what I mean? But we'll do that here in just a second. I wanted to ask you, have you seen that video? And if you have, what do you think of it? What do you make of it, actually, rather? It looks like a Bigfoot running, but there's like these, I don't know, these goats or something running behind it. And it looks like it kind of just creeps up on them and catches one of them and puts one in his arm and kind of starts running. But at the same time, it doesn't look like a human type running, but like a galloping, kind of like a, like this, kind of like a horse.
No, I don't believe I've seen that video.
You haven't seen it? Okay.
I would like to see it though, but
I'm gonna, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna find it and I'm gonna post it on your group, and I'll tag you. Okay, that way you can look at. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Awesome.
Numerous people called me over the last few years that's had dog man encounters in the Tennessee, Virginia area, and I used to go out and check a lot more of those than I do now, but I still go out and check some. I've got a lady, a man in my group that's got a lot of activity. I've been, I guess it would be Southwest Virginia, real close to the West Virginia line and the Tennessee line, where it all meets together there. But they messaged me several times, and I do plan to get up there and visit their area pretty soon. But,
right.
Well, I think there's a lot more of these creatures than there used to be. I couldn't answer why, but I know there's more Bigfoot or forest people than there was when I first had my encounter.
Right. I've interviewed, now that you mentioned Tennessee, I've interviewed quite a few people from Tennessee, and that's another hot spot too, especially by the eastern Tennessee, by the Daniel Boone Forest.
Well, I know. Forest is pretty hot area.
It's pretty hot area.
Daniel Boone National Forest that's real hot with dog men up in Kentucky. Of course, my friend Barton only lives in Henderson, Kentucky, and he knows Kentucky as well as anybody, and he's had quite a few encounters himself over the years. But,
right. I didn't know you were from Tennessee or Martin. I thought Martin was around Kentucky area, like the LBL.
Martin and I both live real close to each other. Like I said, we're
Tennessee.
about 15 minutes apart.
Okay.
Been friends for years, and just super good guy. I call him one of the real human beings. Him and Barton only both.
Right.
They're just the best of people, and very fortunate to
be
a partner with them to research with. So I
know two really good researchers, Dogman researchers actually, Dogman researchers, just Dogman, not Bigfoot, not anything else. And they're both from Tennessee. I don't know if you ever heard of them. One is Ricardo Sanchez, and the other one you heard. Okay, and the other one is Paul Chafin. Have you ever heard of him?
I've heard of both of them.
Okay, yeah, they're both from Tennessee, and they're great researchers, man. Just
I
wanted
think
to
they're up
bring that.
around East Tennessee, Newport
Yeah,
area.
East Tennessee,
I'm
yeah.
right about that.
And Paul Chafin does a lot of his research in Daniel Boone Forest. That's what I mentioned,
Okay.
Daniel Boone.
That's a pretty remote area there.
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
you're going to find those creatures mostly in a remote area. They don't. I do believe they're close to towns too. Now, don't get me wrong there. I've had many people call me over the years with seeing Bigfoot or a forest person at 2 o'clock in the morning opening up a dumpster and getting a bag of trash out of a restaurant behind it. So they do come down to towns, and I'm sure some probably live real close to them. So I'm sure Dogman's the same way.
Right.
There is a case of a dogman of an actual judge in Maryville, Tennessee, that actually seen a dogman walking around downtown in the middle of the night. And also Wilson County, Lebanon, Tennessee, with my close friend Beth Collingsworth, one of my moderator experts in my group and a good friend, part of my research team there in Tennessee. She's witnessed them on her farm, and so is Jennifer Appleton. She's about 15 minutes from her. And she had Dogman and Bigfoot on her property every day, just about. And they witnessed, Beth witnessed 2 dogmen, her friend, her close friend did, in the middle of downtown in a cemetery walking around. And this was in the daylight. So I don't think these creatures are real fearful of anybody. So they're a lot different than they once were. Only dogmen I ever heard of, years ago was the one Martin Groves had his experience with at the LBA Wild Turkey Hunt.
Right.
Now you hear about dogmen all the time. So it's like everybody says like the veil is closing. I believe it is.
Yes, it is, because it's blown up, man. It's blown up now. There's so many encounters now. A lot more encounters than back in, say 10-15 years ago.
More sightings than ever.
More sightings, yes.
Probably nothing now to hear about a Bigfoot sighting, but I mean to hear a dogman sighting, it seems like that's the area that most people have started to go to because they've heard Bigfoot for so many years. It's been the persona of the cryptid world, but the humanoid world, like my friend Barton calls them. But dogman, it seems like there's just more of all type creatures. I've heard of the lizard type people. I've heard of the reptilians in the LBL. I've never seen one, but we both heard of them. And Martin did see one there back years ago. But I've never seen one of them. But it's crazy how many of these creatures seem to be out now compared to what we were seeing. I'm sure that has a lot to do with, building coming into areas and taking their living area. And you got more people in the woods out looking for them now too.
Absolutely. And the growth of the population, expanding into the woods more. Yeah. So I think we're gaining more territory of their personal territory. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Hey, I have a question from Go Shock. Yeah, Go Shock. He says, are there hotspots near ley lines? I'll let you answer that, Darrell.
I definitely believe ley lines have a lot to do with all the cryptids, all of them. If you look at the national cave systems and you line them up with the missing people, it's pretty shocking. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but I've posted it several times in my group. But
no, I don't believe I have.
I know we're talking about a whole different subject here, but missing people. I'm talking about people that you never see again, that has vanished going for a hike in the woods, and sometimes they're with the whole group and they just gone. They don't know what happened to them. But if you lay those on the map of the U.S. And you put the cave system there, it'll really surprise you how close it looks. And then you put the ley lines across that on the U.S. And of course, ley lines are everywhere. They're probably one in your backyard if you look it up. So.
Yeah.
It's pretty, where they cross and meet in several junctions seems to be more hotspots. I don't know why that is. Of course, they've been using ley lines since the Roman times. So, I mean, thousands of years ago, the actual Roman temples, what I understand, were built because of the ley lines in certain areas because there was more magnetic field there, which
Hmm.
seemed to pull more energy. So I definitely believe that ley lines have a lot to do with cryptid sightings. I think they do stay in that area. Now, I've never seen an alien or a UFO myself, but
Hmm.
it seems to be a lot of those around when you see a lot of the cryptids. So I don't know what
Yeah.
I think it all connects. I think it's all
Yeah.
connected somehow. I don't know
Absolutely,
how.
I completely agree with you, and I've said that for many many years that I believe that they're connected because there's so many encounters where they either see it before or after a UFO, before or after they had their cryptid encounter.
I've got good friends that's been abducted numerous times. Robin McCrae has. Jennifer Appleton has been abducted, and one time when she was abducted, she actually seen a Bigfoot on a spaceship. So these are credible people, and these are people who are still fearful of being abducted because it's a
Wow.
continuous thing that's been happening to them all their life.
So they were abducted and they saw Bigfoot inside the spaceship, the
Well,
spacecraft.
Jennifer had been abducted and did see a Bigfoot on a spaceship one of the times she was abducted, and she's been abducted many times. So,
Wow.
and Robbie McRae has also. There's other people too, like I mentioned before.
Hmm.
I don't even think we know. There's so many people that don't report this because they're afraid of ridicule. They're afraid of
Yeah.
what they're going to get from it.
Yeah.
There's no telling how many people really see things that we never hear. Just
Yeah.
like the BFRO. I mean, they go out and investigate a site. Well, I'd say 50% of sites are never reported to anybody. The police or nobody. They don't even tell their family because they don't want people to think they're crazy. So and of course, the BFRO goes out and just interviews, and sometimes they do a little research. But I'm relating to Bigfoot on that, of course. But I
Hmm.
think that when you go look at their actual number of sightings with dogmen, UFO, all of it, how many of them are actually really a report? Those numbers are so far off of what they post and what's actually out there. So it's hard to determine a number. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
the credibility on them, I believe, is there, but so many people just don't tell anybody.
Right. Right, because of the fear of ridicule and the bad publicity. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because a lot of people are like, oh, look, that's the person, and the news is gonna go, and that's just bad publicity. I mean, if it was a good publicity, it'd be good, but it's not. So that's what people try to avoid, right?
Unfortunately, that's still it's a lot better now than it was 30 years, 20 years ago. But
Hmm.
it's more acceptable. And what's made such a big difference is podcasters like yourself
Hmm.
let people tell their stories, encounters, groups like
Yes.
I have, and other groups that are out
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
Good groups that don't allow criticism and let people tell their encounters because a lot of
Yeah.
these people have held this inside for
Yeah.
20, 30 years and they
Yeah.
were afraid to really talk about it because they couldn't. And now that's one of the
Right.
good things about the actual groups and then the podcasts like yourself because
Hmm.
these people are credible. They're not just people making. I'm sure there's some people who have made up stories about them. I don't know why they would, but I'm sure there are, but I'd say that the biggest portion of these people gain nothing out of telling their story if it's not true.
Right,
So,
and it takes a lot of basically balls to come out and tell your encounter
sure,
because
uh,
one, they're not going to believe you, two, they're going to ridicule you,
right,
and three, they're just going to like label you crazy or whatever. So
yeah,
imagine all the ones like Larry Hart said. I believe more encounters don't get reported than the ones that do get reported.
I believe
And
that
yeah,
100%.
that's absolutely true. Imagine how many have not been reported
Yeah.
as to how many have reported because we've had like thousands. So imagine how many haven't been reported. That's probably like millions, right? I mean,
I ran into
like
a
Damien
guy.
K said.
I ran into a guy back in 2011, and he lived on the Tennessee River, and not too far outside of Chattanooga. And he had contacted me and said, "Do you come out to people's houses and look at check out what they've got?" And I said, "Well, me and my team go out as often ones we can, but we get so many calls we couldn't do them all. But a real credible one we would. And when I went to this guy's place and I actually met him off of Interstate 24 at a place called Raccoon Mountain,
Hmm.
kind of like a little resort area, and I followed him for miles back in these hills and to the Tennessee River, and him and his wife and daughter were just terrified. They were telling me the story. They've been watching these Bigfoot come to their house for 13 years, and they would come to the house at night and look at the
Wow.
windows and scare them to death. And they had actually made police reports, but the police came out and made the report, but just thought they were crazy, you know. Okay, well, if we see them again, let us know. And it went on to the point where they couldn't call them anymore. They just told them, don't call us anymore. We're not coming out there. But I
Right.
went up there and stayed 2 nights, and it was pretty amazing what all he had. He had a very large clan there on the river that would come down at night, and they weren't trying to harm him. They were just, they're curious. They come down
Hmm.
and look at the windows and pick up things, and they're also looking for food. That they're more of a hunter at night, I think, than they are in the day,
Yeah.
and they find it more receptible to be out because they can't be seen as easy
Right.
too. So that's the big reason they're a lot more nocturnal than they are.
Nocturnal. Yeah.
Yeah, you see them in the day too, but not as often as
The,
you do
the,
at
I like to label them as the nature's ninjas. They like to, come out at night and hunt, and because
night.
they know they're not going to be bothered with as much as during the day. You know what I mean?
Well,
So,
the scary thing about researching this day and time is not like it was when I started, because now you got it when you go in the woods, you've got dogmen in the same area that Bigfoot are in, and they may have always been there. I don't know, but I didn't see them myself at that time. But I think they're just, for some reason, depends on the area that you're in too. I'm a true believer that the LBL has two whole different type of dogmen. They have a flesh and blood, and then they have something that I don't know what it is, like we seen. And I don't know what it was. It was some type of interdimensional dogman, but it was nothing like I've ever seen. But they're different type, and I think it does depend on the area you're in. So
mhm.
some areas are more prone to. Uh, I believe Bigfoot's flesh and blood. I think the forest people are flesh and blood. I don't believe dogmen all are, and
Right. Right.
that's
Exactly.
just
Me
out of
neither.
my own experience. But
Hmm.
who knows? We don't. None of us know the real truth on all of it, and I don't know that we ever will. But
Yeah. Yeah. I like to label dogmen in 4 or 5 categories, not just flesh and blood. There's a lot
sure,
more to it than just flesh and blood.
I
Yeah.
don't know enough about them to to be able to speculate everything that I hear. But I
Right.
hear a lot of stuff that makes you wonder what they are.
Hmm.
So you hear some that are real vicious, and you hear people like in my group, for example, that they've got them on their property. They don't bother them. They seem to be friendly with them. They don't harm anything. And then you hear other people, they attack their livestock. They kill their animals. I mean, you hear all these stories of different types. So just
Yeah.
like I said before, I think there are all these cryptids and humanoids and Bigfoot, forest people. They're all like people. There's good ones and bad ones, and you're going to run into. You don't know what you're running to out researching. You just
Hmm.
really don't. I tell people all the time, don't go research by yourself. If you're
Oh
going to
no.
research,
Oh
don't
no.
go
No.
by
No.
yourself.
Oh no. That's a big no no.
You'd be
Because
surprised how many ladies go out in the woods by themselves and research.
no, that's a really bad idea. Because one, you can be an easy target for any predator,
Yeah,
natural predator at that,
true.
and especially cryptids. Because if they see that you're there alone, they're gonna take you out because they know that nobody's gonna be a witness to you disappearing. See?
I think Scott Carpenter pretty much said that the right way, because he puts
Hmm.
the GoPro on his back and he catches everything behind him, and they're
Yeah,
always sneaking up on him or
yeah, they're always following
you
them.
know
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy what he done with that. And Scott's just a fantastic researcher anyway, and very
yeah,
knowledgeable, and knows a lot about both of them. More probably more about Bigfoot than Dogman, but he's had both encounters. So
yeah,
when you catch a portal on a trail like he did, which is
yeah.
very credible portal. You can see it moving, and you can actually see the creature kind of coming out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty impressive. What that makes you wonder what is out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that may be what's happening to so many of these people that are missing. You take Yosemite National Park; it's the most people missing in that park than any place in the entire world. That's a big number when you say world. So we're talking about there's more people missing there than any place in the entire world. And I don't know why anybody wants to go. And they still draw, 10 million people a year there. And you're not going to, the National Park Service is about a $2.8 billion a year industry. And they're not going to go out and tell people, hey, don't come and visit.
Yeah,
Don't come
and
and camp there.
that's exactly why they don't report any of those events or attacks because they don't want to lose their revenue. Like you
That's a
said, that's
big
a
part of it.
multi-million dollar business
And that's
yearly.
that's a really big reason that I am such good friends and support Joe and Jesse with Hellbent Holler so much, and Martin and Barton. They go out to LBL. We do because we're trying to help and find out as much as we can. And I don't know about all the stories of all the missing people at LBL. I know that some of them are credible because my friends know that, and I know that, but I'm not going to sit here and say there's thousands of people because I don't know the numbers there. But I do know that there's at all the parks, there's people missing, not just the LBL. But when you get to Yosemite and they can label it more people than any place in the world are missing people. I think the number is about 60,000 over the years. I believe that's the number. I could be wrong on that. But when you have that type of label, I can understand why anybody would want to go there.
Right, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I was gonna ask you, Daryl. Can we start moving on to the to your encounters, brother? Can you? I know you said you had a lot, so maybe we don't have time for you to tell each and every one. But can you start with kind of like the most important ones that you can remember, and as far as back as you can remember?
Well, my most important one was my first one. It always will be. And I've had some encounters that maybe one or two that probably scared me as much as that one now, but that one will always stand out as the top one. And that was in November the 6th of 92 in Cannon County, Tennessee. I was actually, it was the opening week of black powder season, muzzleloader, as we call it in Tennessee. And they have a week before the gun season opens every year for just, a black powder rifle. It's a single shot. They make them now with, I think, more than a single shot. But back when I started, you just had a regular black powder rifle, and you put the ball in it and the powder, and you ramrodded it in with a ramrod, and that's what you hunted with. And that's what we were doing. And I'd hunted at that was my grandfather's farm in Cannon County, Tennessee, and me and three of my friends had been hunting there for 5 or 6 years. And we go up there opening week, and we always got a deer because it was a real good area to hunt. And there's this white-tailed deer, and we were there. And I'll skip over a little bit of it because I don't know how much time I have left. But the we were
No,
there, and
we have enough time. You go ahead and
okay,
tell us with
so
detail. Mm-hmm.
we we got we I had a camper at that time that I pulled with my truck, and I pulled my camper up there, and I pulled it next to my grandfather's barn, and we would hook it up to the electricity in his barn, and we would camp out there for the whole week. We'd be there for 7 days and 6 nights, and we would go opening day of muzzleloader because that's when you had your best chance to get a deer early in the season. And it was only one deer per at that time, and normally it was a buck that you had to get, and it had to be, I think, above 4 inches or the spike or whatever they call it. Of course, we never shot anything like that. We always looked for bigger ones anyway. But we had been up there this particular year, and I'd parked my camper, and one of my buddy's fathers with his truck, and we all had four wheelers, and he was pulling the four wheelers behind following us, and I'd asked my grandfather, I said, I've been hunting up here a long time, all my life, but I want a big trophy this time. What would be the best place to go? And he was on his back porch, and he was 92 years old at that time, but in excellent health and not like a regular 92-year-old man. He lived there all his life. And he pointed over and he said, "You see that third hollow?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "I would go on the other side of that." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "You've been there, but it's been years." And we had been there by an old gravel road that went there, but this is going through the hills and hollows to get there. So I set out that particular day, and you go through my grandfather's backyard and you open a gate to go across about a 200-yard wide sage field where his cows are at. And then you get to a barbed wire fence where the wood line is, which that's what kept his cattle in that area. And I crossed the barbed wire fence and climbed over the first hill, then the second. And when I got over the third one at the very bottom, he said, "If you'll look, there's a stream there. It's a creek, and it gets real wide at one end and it narrows down at one. You'll see what's left of an old grist mill there, and you'll see the old home place where I was born. You'll see the tin roof that's fallen in over the years." And so I went over there and got down to that area he was talking about, found a tree on the side of the ridge overlooking a little clearing there across the creek, and put my climbing stand. A climbing stand's what you put on a tree, and you have two little wing nuts, and you climb up the tree with it, and it becomes a portable tree stand, but it's in the tree. It's real secure. And I climbed up and cut a few limbs off and got ready for the next day and came back down, had my stand set up, and crossed the creek and went over, and there was a little game trail on the other side of the creek. And to the left of me was a real thick cane thicket that went way down this creek a long ways. And cane is a real tall type, looks kind of like bamboo, but it's green. And it's 12 to 15 foot tall, real thick, hard to get through. And crossed the creek there, and I went across, and I seen some rubs and scrapes where the deer had been, and where they'd been coming in. And I kind of went over to the right of where my stand was and straight ahead of where my stand was at, and I found a limb, and I had a drag rag on my boot. It has a little elastic strap, and you wear that when you go in, and it kind of covers up your scent, and it has what's called a doe and scent on it, and you hang that little rag up on the tree, and it kind of covers your scent, but it puts out an aroma to help attract a male deer, which is a buck. And I jumped up and grabbed a limb, and I tied it on it and let it go, and it was up. It was up probably about 8 foot, 8.5 foot off the ground. And I headed back across and went on back to the house, and told my granddad I'd set up, and then I went down to the camper where my buddies were and kind of grilled out with them that night, stayed in the camper with them, had a good time. And I told my granddad, "When you get up, come and wake me up." And he gets up about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning because he has to go milk cows. And I was in the camper that next morning. He knocked on the side of the camper and said, "Get up, boy." And my granddad always called me boy. He never called me by my name. And I lived with him a lot of my life. And when I was a small kid, because my parents worked 90 miles away, and I stayed with him and my grandmother there on the farm.
That's how
And
grandpas used to be back in the day. They just call you boy, yeah.
that's all he ever called me. But anyway, next morning he knocked on the camper, and I headed that way and had my gun and my powder horn and a fanny pack with some extra loads in it. And I even had my lunch, and I also had a pair of binoculars that I had carried. Had them hanging around my neck. And after I crossed through the gate in his backyard into the sage field, I shut the gate back and went across the sage field and got to the barbed wire fence at the wood line. And as I crossed it, I started going up the hill. Now, when I say hills, these are hills. They're like 45-degree angle. They're steep. And I started going up the hill, and got up, and I don't remember how far up I was exactly, but I heard a noise kind of to the left of me, and it sounded like a person walking. And I stopped and looked, and I had a flashlight, and I shined it, and I didn't see anything. And I thought that's kind of strange because I knew where my friends were hunting. He had a large enough farm, plus his neighbors let us hunt on their property also. It's a real rural area, but they weren't in this area, so I couldn't imagine anybody else being in there. And I knew he didn't have any cattle in there over that fence. So I just kind of wrote it off and climbed on over the next hill, and we got on down to the third hill, the top of it, and I was going down toward the creek area. It was dark, and I didn't know that area real well. I'd hunted in there all my life, but not that far in. And I got about down the hill a little ways, and I heard it again. It was on top of the hill to my left, walking. And when I would stop, it would stop. And I shined my flashlight up again, and didn't see anything. Walked a little further, and kind of got a little anxious. And when I went around the side of the bank there was a little ravine where I got down to the creek. And I went through it and walked around the side of the creek, and I found my stand. And I was a little nervous in a way because I couldn't figure what I was hearing. I was kind of thinking, oh, another hunter's coming here. So I got this climbing stand on my feet, and I climbed up the tree and got set up there. And I was about 25 feet up, and I got it. You lean back on it, and it makes it dig into the tree where it won't slip. And that's what I've done a couple times. And I hung my binoculars on a branch and my lunch, and then I hung my fanny pack with my loads and my powder horn on one branch that I'd cut the day before, and got set up. And I had a little bar in front of my stand, and it pulled up to about right here, and it was like a camo thing that fell down when you did that, and it covered your feet and your body up all the way to your boots. And I was sitting there, and it's a pretty good walk there. It's a good 45 minutes to an hour walk to get there. And it might have been a little more than that in the dark, but I was there plenty of time. It was still dark. But I've been sitting there a while, and right when daylight was just enough where you could see, I started hearing regular animals like squirrels in the leaves and that type of thing. And I looked out across that creek, and it was a real foggy morning. The creek had fog on top of it, and I couldn't see the field on the other side of it. It was actually not a field, but just a clearing in the woods on the other side of this creek next to a game trail where I'd seen those deer scrapes and where they've been eating acorns there. A lot of acorns that year, I remember that. But anytime there's a real good acorn harvest, there seems to be a lot more deer. But I've been sitting there and excuse me. I guess it was somewhere before 8 o'clock. The fog had cleared, and I noticed three deer to my left. They come out somewhere around that cane thicket over to my left, somewhere over in that area. I couldn't tell exactly, but I seen them walk through the creek, walk up on the bank, and they made a right, and they come back across in front of me where I was on this 45-degree angle. I'm in a tree. I'm kind of looking over them into this clearing. And they just walked around like deer do, and they were just milling around and eating acorns and pawing a little bit like deer do. And they were pretty close to that what I call my drag rag I hung in the tree, but it didn't seem to bother them. And I watched them for a good 20, 30 minutes walk around and eat. And I was just thinking, well, this is a good sign because normally if there's doe, these were all three doe. There was a big doe and a younger one to the right and another one to the left, kind of behind it. And they were all just eating acorns on the ground. And then all of a sudden, the lead deer, the biggest one, the female, bigger deer, I figured the other two were probably her yearlings, but she stuck her head up and looked toward the cane thicket area over in that area, and her ears stood up. And then I noticed the other two did the same thing. These deer just completely froze, and they were looking toward this cane thicket. Well, I'm thinking immediately, well, here comes a big buck. This is going to be the big male deer I'm looking for because they're looking in that area, and something's over there moving around. And I couldn't hear it, but I could tell the way they were acting. And then the lead deer, the bigger one, she stuck her nose up like she was smelling, stuck it up in the air real high, and then she turned back and looked in the area again and made a real loud blowing sound, like if you've ever heard a deer, they blow real loud. Almost sounds like you're blowing your nose, but it's real loud. And usually that's a sign of they're scared of something or they don't like what they're seeing. And that kind of got my attention. And I was watching her, and then she took her right front foot and raised it 2 or 3 times and kind of pawed the ground. I can remember this like it was yesterday. It was something I'll never forget. And then she all of a sudden turned to the right and went right in front of me as fast as she could run, just like somebody had shot at them or scared them. And the other 2 deer went right behind her, and they were running as fast as they could. I watched them run on down the creek bank till they went into the hardwoods, and I couldn't see them. I thought, well, this is it. This big buck's fixing to come out over here. And I'm sitting there waiting, and I've got my gun leaned up on this bar in front of me, and I reached down and I had a hold of my gun and just had my hand around it. And about that time, I started seeing the cane moving kind of in the middle of it. And this is real thick, tall cane. It takes a pretty strong body to move it. And the cane was kind of swaying in the middle. And I watched it sway all the way to the front. And out steps this creature. And I'm just looking at it. I just can't believe what I'm seeing. And it steps out and it takes one step and just leaps across the creek, jumps, leaps, whatever you want to call it. And the creek right there is somewhere around 10 or 12 foot wide. It's not a real wide creek in that area, but there was about a foot of water that runs in it all year round.
Wow.
A lot wider on the other end. And when it jumped across that creek, it landed right at the game trail there, and it turned to the right and walked right down in front of me. I'm looking straight ahead at it. And it walked right down, and then it turns and looks right at me. And when it looked at me with the eyes it had, it was the ugliest, meanest looking thing I've ever seen. And it looked at me with its eyes. It knew exactly where I was at. I'm sure it was what I'd heard that morning now. But
Wow.
and I was thinking, well, I've got one shot with this 50 caliber muzzleloader, and I don't know if what I've got will bring this thing down. And I didn't know what to do, really. I was, at that point, then it showed me its teeth. It gritted its teeth, and its mouth was kind of a sideways. I can't hardly explain what I'm saying, but it's kind of the mouth
Grin?
kind of twisted.
Grin? Kind of like a grin?
Well, it was not a grin, just on one side. The mouth and the lip was different, and when it showed me its teeth, it just gritted them. It looked at me like it was really mad.
Oh.
And I was like, when I seen that, I was practically just frozen. I could hardly move. I couldn't hardly breathe. I was trying to breathe, and I was thinking, this thing's going to come across the creek and just rip me out of this tree. And then it lets out a growl, and it's a growl like I've never heard. A low, guttural, long growl as it's looking at me. And I thought, well, this is it. This thing's coming across the creek. It's going to get me and just rip me out of this tree. And
Wow.
I'm still sitting there just scared to death. I didn't know I had that kind of fear in me because I don't scare real easy, but this thing had me just scared to death. And then all of a sudden it walks over a little further to the right as I'm watching it walk, and it reaches up and grabs that drag rag and smells of it, and then just rips the whole tree limb out of the tree. And the tree limb wasn't massive. It was probably about 4 inches round at the base of the tree, but it was a long limb, and just ripped it out and threw it on the ground. Then it walked back to where it was at, and it's just sitting there staring at me. And by this time, I didn't know what to do. I was thinking, do I jump? Do I run? I knew I couldn't climb down the stand because it takes probably 15 minutes to get back down. And I didn't know what to do. I was trying to make my mind up. Did I have enough strength to do that? Because I was almost frozen. And then it lets out the loudest, most eerie scream that I've still never heard again today on all the Bigfoot recordings that I've heard. And
Wow.
It was so loud and it echoed all down that hollow, and it was sitting there staring at me as it screamed. And I thought, well, it's coming across now for sure. And it,
So it was a Sasquatch then, because that's what I was
yeah, it
thinking it was.
was
Okay.
a Sasquatch, yeah. And
Wow.
I didn't even know Sasquatch were. I don't know, but I didn't think if there was a Sasquatch they were in Tennessee. I thought they were out west in Oregon or Washington or California or Canada, British Columbia, that area. But it was definitely a Sasquatch, and when it after it let that scream out, by that time I was in a complete panic mode. I didn't know what next move to make. And then it just turns and walks away from me, just straight ahead. I watched it walked away, and it walked a good ways, and then it turned back and looked at me. And then it walked on till I watched it walk out of the hardwoods to where I couldn't see it. And I let the bar down on that tree stand. I jumped out of the top of that tree stand, about 25 foot to the ground. And it's a real steep slope. I hit those leaves and I slid all the way into the creek. And I still had my gun in my hand above my head. And I got up and I ran as fast as I could run. I ran around the side of that creek bank up to a little ravine to the top of that hill I'd crossed. And
Hmm.
I was running as hard as I could, and I was looking back the whole time to see if it was coming, and I didn't see it. And I got over the top of the first hill, and I was running as fast as I could. I got down to the middle of the second hill there where it was a valley, and there was a full small barbed wire fence there that had been used in years. And I jumped it, kept going, got about halfway up the second hill. I'm still looking back, and I see this thing on top of the hill of the first hill and standing there looking at me. I
Wow.
don't know if it was the same one or another one. It could have been another one, but it was there looking at me, and all that did was give me more adrenaline to run faster. So the adrenaline just kicked in, and I ran over that hill, and I was running as fast as I could by the time I was coming down the last hill, the third one, right before the barbed wire fence that crossed into the sage field of my grandfather's. And I had enough speed coming down, I just jumped that barbed wire fence. And when I jumped it, my boot, the bottom of my pants and my boot leg caught it, and I ripped my pants up to my knee and cut a big gash in my leg on that barbed wire. But I didn't even know I'd done that till I got to the house, and I'd run across. When I landed, I ran through that sage field as fast as I could, and all the time kept looking back, and I didn't see it. I got to the gate that I had to go through, and I ran through the gate. I locked it back and looked, didn't see it, and then I run into my grandfather's backyard to his porch, his back porch, and he had an overhang on his porch, and old screen door, and then a wooden door, and I ran through it and shut the door and locked both of them and looked out the glass in the window and the door, and I didn't see it anywhere. And I went to the right, which I was in his kitchen at that point, and I went to the right and I went into the living area where my grandfather was sitting, and there was an old big pot-bellied stove there, kind of to the right in the corner toward the middle of the room. And I just ran in and sat down behind it against the wall, and I was just trying my best to even catch my breath. And my grandfather said, "Boy, what's wrong with you?" And I couldn't even talk. I was so out of breath and trying to catch my breath, plus scared to death at the same time. And finally got my breath, and I got up and ran, looked out the window and the door again. I didn't see this thing, and I came back in and sat back down. And he said, "What's wrong with you, boy?" And I said, "I just seen a monster in the woods." And he said, "A monster?" And I said, "Yeah, I seen a monster in the woods." And I said, and it was mad. It didn't want me there. And he said, "Oh, you seen the wood booger?" I said, "A wood booger?" I said,
Yeah.
What's
That's
a
what they used
wood?"
to call them back in the day. Yeah.
I
Hmm.
said, "What is a wood booger?" And he said, "Well, boy, I've seen four in my lifetime, and I'll be working in the pasture, and I'll look up, and one of them will be over in a tree line
Damn.
staring at me." And he said, "They don't bother you." He said, "They're real territorial." And he said, "I didn't think about one being over there, but I can see why it would be. Nobody's been in there in years." And he said, "I didn't want to tell you about them because if I did, you never would have hunted here and played in the woods, and you and your cousins and brothers camped in the barn and the loft at night. And he said,
Right.
didn't
Mm-hmm.
want you to know about them, but he said, yeah, it's a wood booger. You've seen one, and they don't like you in their area. And I said, well, I wish I'd have known about it, but because I've never heard you mention it. And he said, well, that's why I didn't tell you.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I wouldn't, I'll never go back down there again. And I was shook up bad. And he kept reassuring me that it was all right. And he said, you know, these things have never bothered me. And he said, they do come up here in the winter. And my grandfather had a chicken house to the left of his back porch, probably about 50 yards from it. It was an old wood log chicken house that he had built years ago. And he said, in the wintertime, they'll come up here and they'll take 2 or 3 chickens and they'll leave a little pile of rocks and sticks out front like they're paying for it. And I said, really? He said, yeah.
Right.
And he said,
That's their way of paying for it, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
he said, they're not going. He said, they never have bothered me. And I've been in the woods before and seen one, and they just look at you. They don't come, he said, they don't seem to bother you. But I was shook up. I was bad shook up. And
Well,
I
yeah. I
stayed in
mean,
there, and I finally made it to the couch, and I was just sitting there trying to get my composure. And he says, you look like you've seen a ghost. I said, I feel like I did see one. I said, I was
yeah.
white, but, you know,
Yeah.
it was 2 or 3 hours. My friends came in. They were out next to the camper, and I went out there to talk to them, and one of them had a deer in the tree, and they were skinning it out. One of them had got one, and it was a pretty nice deer, and he was excited about it. And I asked him, I said, guys, we've been hunting up here quite a few years, and y'all ever seen anything in the woods? And they all looked at me, and they said, like what? And I said, kind of like maybe a Bigfoot type creature. And they started laughing, you know. They said, man, you had too much to drink last night. I said, well, I didn't drink anything last night,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't say anything else about it. I didn't even mention it again. But I
Uh,
stayed in the house with my grandfather the rest of that trip, and I didn't stay in the camper. I stayed with him till it was time to go to sleep. But I didn't hunt anymore that trip, and I didn't hunt anymore for not in the woods for about 7 years. I didn't go. I've never been back to that spot.
wow.
Uh,
Hey, Daryl, and how old were you back then? It was in nine. This was in '92, right?
I don't know how old I was then. I was in my 20s, I guess, but
Early 20s or something.
I probably have only, I never hadn't thought about it. But, you know,
Mm-hmm.
my grandfather just took it like it was nothing. That was the shocking thing to me, you know.
Yeah, because he's seen it. As old as he
Yeah,
was,
and, you know,
he's seen him. He's seen him quite a few times. And what gets me is how old timers used to call them boogers. You know, these
oh,
wood
yeah.
boogers, mud boogers, all kinds of boogers. Like, where did they get that name boogers, right? It's like, where'd they get that from?
You know, the funny thing is, Carl, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I went down to at that time, I didn't even have a cell phone. So, you know, I
Right.
went down to the library when I got back home because I was living about almost 90 miles from him where I actually lived then. And I went to the library several times, and I was trying to find books with pictures of Bigfoot in them. And after looking for a couple of weeks, I actually did find a book that had like 10 different type of Bigfoot in it. It was just illustrations of 10 different types, and the actual number 2 was exactly looked like what I'd seen, except and it was called the number 2 wood booger. There was the number 2 picture, and it said wood booger. And the only difference is the picture had red eyes, and the one I seen had black eyes. And but it looked like that creature. It was pretty remarkable how similar it was to it. So,
Right, right. And you know
but
what? I was going to get into that next, Daryl, on the description. If you can describe how it looked, to you, like as far as the head, the size of the head, the shape of the head. You know, there's some cone shaped
yeah,
head
this
ones.
one didn't have a cone head at all.
No,
So
okay.
it was more like a.
And then the eyes, were they big or small or medium,
Well,
almond
the eyes
or?
were big, but they weren't, real big. The head was more like a human type head, but it had hair a lot of hair. The hair was mainly from underneath the eyes down
Around
here.
the eyes, right? Around the
Mm.
eyes.
Well, I didn't have very much hair right around the eyes. It was
No,
down.
no. I mean around the eyes, like around this
Yeah,
eye
right,
area.
right, right.
That's where their hair is. You
Yeah,
know, like they don't have no hair right here in the eyes, and they don't
yeah,
have no hair around the nose and the mouth,
yeah.
kind of,
The
right?
nose was more the nose was actually more human looking, except it was more flat, and
Right,
but it wasn't like an eight flat, but
right. Not
uh,
that much. Yeah.
and
Hmm.
it was solid black. The teeth were square, didn't have fangs or anything or nothing.
Right, right.
Just straight
And
teeth.
and the eye color, was it like an amber color, red color?
They had black eyes.
Oh, okay, black. Okay.
Yeah, they were black. You could see they were black eyes. I could actually see this creature back in that day. I remember. I don't know if you ever wore them or not, but in that time, a lot of my friends that hunted wore these old watches called Iron Man. There was
Yeah, I remember that. I had a couple of those. Iron
and
Man, yeah.
they had a little button you could push. It was called Indiglo, and it would
Indiglo, yeah, yeah. And
light up.
it light up your screen, yeah.
Yeah, and it had a little stopwatch on it, and I always used that stopwatch when I seen a deer. I'd push that, and that way I would know what time it came out if I went back hunting in that area. I pushed it that morning when I'd seen it about to come out of that cane thicket, and
Right.
that was 8:23. And when I pushed it, when I jumped out of the tree, it was 8:38. So I had about 15 minutes total time between the time it came out and walked off. So it was a lot longer time frame than I thought, but it seemed like hours, but it was
But it was
well,
really just 15 minutes, yeah.
but it had skin like leather, like black leather, and like lines in it, like wrinkles.
And you know what the reason for that is, Gerald? I don't know if you ever, kind of thought about it, like what it could be. It's your adrenaline. Adrenaline makes you think a lot faster than what really time's going on. See what I'm saying?
I'm sure that's
So
true.
you, yeah, you know how people say your life flashes before your eyes and all that. That's like a bunch of snap pictures in your head going at a million miles an hour when it's
I,
really just a minute or so. You know what I mean?
it definitely was a life changing day for me because it was I had nightmares for weeks, months, years. I mean, I would occasionally get off my mind and I would have another nightmare, and it was just crazy how it affected me like that. But
Right.
it was a
Hey,
long time before I
and
got
and
over that.
and what size would you give it, Daryl?
Well,
Like
it was about 8 foot, or maybe
a little more?
maybe an inch or so taller or less,
Hmm.
because what I judge that by, I'm 6'5", and when I raise my hand straight up, I can reach between here and there. It's 8 foot. I've measured that before, and
Oh,
from being in football, we used to do that for some
oh,
reason. I don't know why that was,
oh, okay.
but that limb that it was where my rag was hanging was about 8 foot when it was up off the ground, his head was right at that limb, so it was real close to 8 foot or a little more. But
Hmm.
it wasn't a 10 footer or nothing like that. But and it was a big. It had a real big body, big shoulders. Uh, the legs below the knees were not real huge, but from the knee up, the thighs were real big. Chest
Kind
real
of
big.
like a big lineman from football or something like that,
Yeah, but a lot bigger. Yeah.
like a linebacker.
I've had many people ask me what I thought it weighed. 600 to 800 pounds would be my guess.
Mm.
And I've heard people say 12 foot and
Yeah,
1,000 pounds, 2,000. I don't know, but this one wasn't. I'm guessing that number, but I know I'm pretty close on the height. The
right.
width was, it had really wide body up top. I'm guessing it was probably 3.5, 4 foot wide, but the skin color was what got me. It was kind of a grayish black, and it looked like leather. But
Around his face area.
all around his face, and his
Okay.
hands were like that too.
Okay, in
But
his hands, yeah, his palms and all that. Could you see skin past the hair or no? Like in his
no,
arms and
I
his
couldn't see
chest?
skin. No, it wasn't like
No.
patchy. It was just like regular. it looked more just like fur. You
Right.
know, is what it looked like. It was solid black. I didn't see anything but black on it. But
And is the hair? That's always been my question. Like, what does Bigfoot hair look like? I know it's kind of scroggy. I know it's kind of thick. I know it's kind of long. But like, if you would compare it to an animal, what animal's hair would that look like? Like a cow? You know how cow?
probably more like a bear.
Oh, more like a bear.
Yeah,
Okay.
I actually had some Bigfoot hair since that
Oh.
time.
Hmm.
I've gotten several pieces of it actually since that time, and after you look at it, it doesn't it looks like regular hair, but the difference is it's more like a it's more like a hollow hair. It's not like a it's hard to explain what I'm saying, but
Is it thick like hog, like a wild hog hair, kind
it's
of?
big like that, but it's more like a. And after I've learned it, the people who have done research on
Hmm.
some of the scientists that the hair does have a hollow shaft. They say so, and that's
Right.
what causes it to reflect light like it does.
Oh, okay.
Uh, but it looked like it's hard to tell exactly what it looked like, but I'd say more like a bear than a cow. But
Right. Okay. Oh, wow, man. That's an awesome encounter if I've ever heard one. A Bigfoot encounter, like right in front of you, man. That's wow.
Well,
That's
it was definitely, like I said, life changing. It's something like that when you don't think about.
and it leaked that creek or whatever, Holler Creek or whatever, 8 foot wide, like nothing.
Well, I think I don't know exactly how wide that creek is. I tried to guess at it. It kind of changes widths all the way down it, but I'm guessing that creek's about 10 foot right there, maybe
Mm,
12 in some spots, but it gets a lot wider on one end than the other. But it
wow.
was at least 10 foot wide right there. But it
And
just
it
made like one step and it was across it. I mean, it was amazing. Just jumped right across it with no problem at all.
wow.
And
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't think any human can just leap unless you get like a lot of speed coming back from where you're at. Kind of
oh
like
yeah,
the,
no doubt
you know,
about
kind of
that.
like a long jump, kind of like the long jump. You know how
It,
they
it would
run
definitely
real
take a long
fast
jump to cover that
to
distance.
cover that. Yeah, but
I
not
probably
just a
couldn't
regular
do it.
leap. Yeah, not just a regular leap. Couple steps and just leap 10 foot.
Yeah,
You can't do that. I think
right.
like I think like and not even a big guy like yourself, 6'5". I think the most you could do is probably maybe 6, 7 feet. You know, on
In
a
my
leap.
younger day, yeah, in my younger day, probably.
Yeah, right.
I'd probably land in the creek now.
Yeah, yeah.
But it
Wow,
was,
man, that's
something like that until you have it happen to you, it's really
right,
hard to explain.
right.
So I understand what the people that have held this in for so long are going through. So Mark
Right.
Groves and I talked about this for years,
Mm-hmm.
and he couldn't tell anybody at the sheriff's department. His partner that worked with him at the sheriff's department, he
Oh
never
yeah,
recovered from it. Never did
yeah.
recover from it.
Right.
And they when you have a dog man try to kill you, a couple of them, and then a couple Bigfoot also with them. Like he was he went through. He still has nightmares.
Wow.
So he
You
went
know,
through
and
that.
I have yeah, I know Martin's story where he shot at it. Him and his friend they shot at it and took off. By the time they turned around to come back, it was gone. I know the story, and he has books and stuff too, Martin. But I have yet to interview him. I'm still trying to contact him because he's a real busy man, and sometimes he's sick, so it makes it difficult for me to contact him to be on the show now, which he has agreed since a long time ago. He said, "Yeah, Curly, I'll do your show, but just let me work my schedule because sometimes I get sick. Sometimes I have to go to a checkup in the hospital or something." And recently, I'm gonna say maybe 2-3 months ago, when I first started talking to him, he said he had an accident in a car accident, and he hurt his ribs and he hurt a bunch of stuff. So I'm like, oh man,
Yeah,
that's
that was actually after the Dogman conference in Paris last
yeah.
August that we were at. He told
Yeah,
us what
after that, yeah. I think it was somewhere along, around Christmas time or something like that. I believe it was, and yeah. So So I don't know how he's doing as far as his health. But
He's doing good. He's just
that's good.
like you said, he stays really busy. So
Yeah, yeah. So I have.
him and Barton both.
Mhm.
I'm just a normal guy, but they're actually big stars, and they've always got something to do. But you
Yeah,
know,
yeah. They're
that's
always attending a conference
yeah.
or Cryptid Con or something. Yeah,
Right.
no, I've seen them. I've seen them on there. But yeah, I'm hoping to bring Martin Groves on the podcast pretty soon. As soon as I can contact him. But yeah, man, his encounters are really well known. How they shot at a dog man and and they came back and it was gone. Yeah,
Well, they're
everybody
pretty
knows that.
lucky to get out of there. After they were
Yeah,
driving out in the truck, these things were ripping their tent apart. So
yeah, yeah.
it was. I mean, I've heard these parts of the story, 30 years ago before he ever told it. But he was
Mm,
very. It was very hard for him to talk about it.
right, I
So,
bet. And I bet it was even harder for him to talk about that when he was a police officer. You know what I'm
well,
saying?
that was the problem. To this day,
Yeah,
they probably got fired because
yeah,
they think
yeah,
it's
yeah.
a
And,
mental
and
evaluation.
yeah, and everybody in the force, as the rest of the officers, they probably thought he was, a little cuckoo or something. You know what I mean?
Well, he didn't
Or
tell a
even,
lot of them because of that reason. But his partner actually that was an officer that was with him, and he never recovered from
right.
it. He's passed away now, but he
Oh
just never
wow. Yeah.
recovered.
Yeah, what was his name? I remember. Martin mentioned him
I've
to
been
me.
asked not to mention his
Was it?
name, so
Okay. Okay.
nothing against you, but I'd rather
Right.
not. But
Okay. Okay.
but
No, that's fine. That's fine. I completely understand.
but
And
he's
I think even Martin had his gun, wasn't it like that? I think he kept that gun that he used for that. I think it was
yeah
his buddy's gun that they used.
yeah. Yeah, they were actually in his friends. They were turkey hunting up there. Is what they were
Mm-hmm.
doing, and Martin had heard something following him back to the camp that evening, and he had also talked to the a guy he met in the woods that was driving an older model Toyota through an old trail, and he was also turkey hunting, but he was about half a mile from them, and that real sad part of that story is, is and then after all this stuff happened, when the dog man came into the camp, and it kind of like zapped Martin and his partner. They had to get their composure back to be able to move. And Martin turned the pistol when he seen one fairly close to him, and he fired on it, and it took off, and it was gone up a bluff in a matter of seconds. Nothing he'd ever seen move like that. And his partner fired a shotgun and hit one behind a tree. It was making a lot of screaming when it was running off. And
Mm-hmm.
then they ran to the truck, and there was an old standard shift pickup truck and four-wheel drive. And Martin jumped in the back with his gun, and his partner jumped in the truck to take off. And when they took off going down through the field, there was two huge Bigfoot standing right there watching them. And it was they were trying to get them too. And they
Uh,
floorboarded it down through that field at a pretty good speed. There was a creek there. I've been to this actual spot with him one time. I think I'm the only one that's ever been there, but we don't like to go back there. But
mm-hmm.
I've actually been there with him once on the anniversary last year, actually in October when we seen that dog man that night. But it was that day that we had been there, and that's a
Right.
real tough area. I don't know how they even got up through there. It's a dry creek bed you have to cross and go up a pretty good sized ravine. And he said they were spinning all the way up it, but by the time they hit the gravel on top, these things were still after them. They're too big for them. So they went through a lot. It really changed his life too.
Yeah, I bet, man. Sorry, I had to plug in my charger from my laptop. Yeah, had to charge. I had to plug it in because it was in 5%. I didn't want I don't want the show to, be
Yeah, I'm
taken
getting
out.
there. I just noticed I'm getting pretty low myself. But
Yeah, yeah. But wow, man, that's an awesome encounter, man. Wow, dude, and it was a pretty descriptive one too at that, So
yeah, I don't think
wow.
you ever, after that first encounter, you never get over it.
That's right.
When
But that
when I
was
start,
your biggest and most important encounter you had, right?
when you start, telling the story, you even feel it again. I mean, it's like you're bringing it back,
But
and
yeah,
sometimes it's stronger
living
than
it
other
again.
times. But
Right.
it makes the hair stand up on your arm and your neck when you start
Yeah.
telling it. Because I still feel that feeling that I had then when I tell it sometimes, because I can just see it like it was yesterday. But
Right.
it's Martin is trying to get me to go back there, him and Barton both, but to go
Mm-hmm.
back to that spot and see if just to see what's there, see if my stand's still there or whatever. I guess
Right.
my binoculars, my thing, all that's still in the tree unless it's.
Oh, y'all left that there, huh?
I
Oh,
left
okay.
everything there when I jumped. All I had was my gun,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's somebody could have been through there between now and then and gotten it or
Took it.
whatever.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
grandfather's been gone for over 20 years, so
Mm-hmm.
he sold the farm and somebody else owns it now. So
Right.
I don't know, but I could even go in there. There might not be very fine
Right.
people trespassing, but it's definitely it's always anything like that you don't expect. And first of all, I wouldn't say I wasn't a believer. I just didn't think they were in my area. But
Right.
I think I'd seen a rerun of the Boggy Creek at that time or something, and I knew about Bigfoot, but
Right.
I didn't really know that they were in Tennessee. But
Yeah. Yeah, man. Wow. Hey, Darrell, we're coming up on an hour and a half mark, in we need to end the show because it being Sunday night, and everybody kind of
yeah,
goes to sleep early or whatever. But man, I would love to have you back some other time because I know you got a lot more encounters, brother. So we didn't have enough time today, but just that
mm,
one. But it was great. It was great. Thank you for sharing that. And maybe next time you come back, you can share some more of your encounters. You know
sure.
what I mean? Yeah,
I
man. I
appreciate
would
it,
love to have you
Carlito.
back, brother.
Thank you for
Yes,
having me on. I appreciate everybody out there in the audience. I can't see
absolutely.
your comments, but I appreciate all my friends being out there too. So,
Yes, yes, yes. I hope you brought some friends with you. I saw a couple of people that I didn't know that haven't been in my show before. I'm guessing they're your friends or your followers. Hey, Darrell, can you tell the people where they can find you and what you got going on as far as like shows, podcasts, books, or anything else you might be working on, brother?
well, I haven't ever written a book, but I have been uh, possibly putting one together eventually. But
Mm-hmm.
you can find me at
Huh.
Bigfoot Believers and Other Creatures. That's Bigfoot Believers and Other Creatures
On
on
Bigfoot.
Facebook. Yeah,
I'm
Bigfoot
sorry,
Believers and
Bigfoot
Other
on
Creatures.
Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, I always support my good friend Martin Nunley and Humanoids by Martin Nunley, and of course Martin Groves and his great books. He's working on a third book now, and my good friend Scott Pace just started a group. You might check it out. It's Costachi Bigfoot and Dogman. So there's a lot of good groups I support out there. Jeremiah Fountains, Tom Cardos, Barb Horn Hartman. Kathy Westerman. There's some real good groups that out there that are a lot like ours. They don't put up with any criticism. So
Right.
I appreciate you supporting those people, and sure like to have you in my group if you're not already a member, and check us out and see what you think. And I certainly appreciate you having me on, Carlito. You're good people, and I'm honored to be here, brother.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Thank you, man. Yes, absolutely. It's, likewise, man. You're a great guy. I wanted to get to know you a little bit better, which I did tonight. That was awesome because we always communicated through Messenger
Right.
and through the groups and stuff like that, but never in kind of like a conversation like we had tonight. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it was awesome, man. Thank you.
All
Appreciate
right.
you. It
Thank
was
you,
great.
buddy.
It's great being with you tonight, and we'll have you on short for part two. Okay.
All right, buddy. Thank you, man.
All right, mate. Good night,
Bye bye.
brother.
Good
All
night,
right. Bye
everybody.
bye. Good night. Hey, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's show. I know it's Sunday night, but I had to pack my shows in this weekend because I had the opportunity and not to be interrupted by anyone. So some of you might know what I'm talking about. But anyway, yeah, that's why I kind of packed in my shows. I had one yesterday and one today. So if you guys haven't seen the one from yesterday, go and check it out. And what else can I say, man? Thank you, everybody, for always showing up, supporting, the show and and the guests that I have, like tonight, Darrell Denton. Y'all heard it. Bigfoot. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, Bigfoot Believers and Other Creatures on Facebook. Okay, y'all go check him out. He's got a very big group over there, and now I see why. 27,000 members. He's a great guy. That's all I can say. He's a great guy, and he's got a lot of information, and he has a bunch of encounters, which I'm gonna have him back for part 2. Okay, guys, and hope to see y'all next weekend. I haven't set up any or booked anybody as of yet, but I'm working on that, so I'll let y'all know by next weekend. Okay, thanks everybody. Ant Rocks, thank you, man. Appreciate you for coming out tonight, man. Miss Bama. Miss Bama, I like that. Bama, it used to be Bama BF, now it's Miss Bama BF. awesome, Bama. And everybody else that showed up, man. Go Shock, like I said, I didn't know who that guy was. Stephen Kramer, Larry Hart, everybody that showed up tonight, and all of you who are watching this, this show tonight without commenting. Thank you, because I seen like 15 people on there, and there was only like maybe 6 or 7 on the chat, but that's okay. Thank you for checking this channel out, and please subscribe, and share, hit the like button, hit the notification button for future shows. I'm still trying to reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, guys. If y'all can help me out with that, much appreciated. I'm at 890, I think, right now, so I'm short 110, which it seems like it's taking forever for that, but it's okay. I'm not tripping. But hey, Brohana, Brohana showed up at the very last moment when I'm closing out the show. It's all good, man. If you go check it out, man, from the start, it was great, man, with Darrell Denton, bro. And but thank you, thank you at least for showing up at the end. And yeah, guys, that's all I can say for now. I'll see you guys on the next one, man, and I hope you guys enjoyed this chat tonight. And by the way, a little bit of bad news. My intro that I did yesterday, I got word that, and I checked it out later, that no audio was on there. So I'm gonna have to work on that and have it ready for hopefully next show, which would be, I'm shooting for next Saturday, guys. Okay, so. With that being said, Carlito Castro is signing out, guys. Thank you, Shane. Thank you. Yeah, man, check it out. Check out the rerun, brother. All right, guys. Well, I'll see you guys next week, man. Peace out. Y'all have a good 4th of July weekend, and be safe out there, okay? Alrighty. Y'all have a good one. Bye.